What is up, guys? This is Master bringing you this presentation of college football bowl games preview. We'll be previewing each 41, and if I have a shot of calling, I'll try to prevent. Well, you know what? I'm gonna be honest here. There won't be any bias with any of this. I'm just going to pick. You know what? Well, I can't do every bowl game, so let's go ahead and avoid the games that I think I'm going to call. So this game, of course, the first one I'm not going to call is going to be Tulane in Louisiana. Tulane comes in at a 500 record, Louisiana beating that 500 record, but losing their final game to Appalachian State in the Sun Belt Championship game. Tulane's going to open up as a 3-point favorite next week in Orlando for the Cure Bowl, which is going to be played at 1:30. And Andre Nunez has really taken Louisiana Lafayette by storm. We haven't really expected this. They had John Davis starting there at quarterback for a little while, and now they are going with Andre Nunez, and Nunez is playing pretty good football this season to get Louisiana that bid for the Sun Belt Championship. Trey Regis is also a very solid running back as well. He's a 1,000-yard rusher. He's a very good player to keep an eye on. But here's the thing: Tulane's offense is very confusing. They got a stingy defense, and that's why the over/under is probably down here at 59. With the stingy defense and this offense that is more of a sort of spread option, they run the triple option out of the spread formation with quarterback Jonathan Banks, able to get the ball out to the running backs and spread the ball as well to guys like Darnell Mooney and of course Taron Oncolade is another solid receiver for Tulane. So give me Tulane in the points in this ball game, and I expect it to be close in the beginning, but I think Tulane has too much firepower and going to be able to make some crucial defensive stops. North Texas and Utah State. North Texas, Mason Fine had a little bit of a disappointing season. They were favorites coming in. Well, probably co-favorites coming into the season with FAU to really go to that conference championship game. And both of them didn't. UAB and Middle Tennessee played in the conference championship, played a rather good game there. But you still got a lot ahead of you if you're North Texas. Mason Fine's still playing a tremendous season with 27 touchdowns, and he's hitting his guy Rico Bussey for a lot. But this offense for Utah State has been very explosive this season. But, the last couple of weeks it hasn't looked as good for the Utah State Aggies, as they really haven't got the offense going the way they wanted to against Colorado State and Boise State in two crucial games. They would have lost. They lost against Boise State, and they could have easily lost against Colorado State, in which Colorado State caught a Hail Mary, but it was called back for illegal touching. With that being said, though, Darwin Thompson is a really solid running back. He could hit the 1,000-yard mark this game against North Texas, and you got a passing attack that's pretty dangerous with Jordan Love. With that being said, I've been on the edge with this game, and since I am going to call this game, I'm not going, or at least I think I'm going to call this game, I'm not going to make a pick. So it should be a good one. Utah State opens up as a 9-point favorite, and the over/under 67. This game will not be called on my hand, but I will have live updates with the game North Texas and Utah State. Arizona State for us. Yeah, it's a very good matchup. Fresno State on a roll right now, winning the Mountain West by surprise 1 week. Then I had Boise State the next week, and now it's Fresno State. He's a dual threat guy that plays, but they got a dual threat guy on the other side for Arizona State that's solid. And Andy Wilkins is playing his final game as a fifth-year senior at Arizona. And Benjamin has really gotten strong down the stretch of the season, the 50 yards this year. And it's still not – I'm not positive if Nicky O'Hare is planning on playing. But even without Nicky O'Hare, they still got a solid receiving core with guys like for example, and a really good defense, I got to go with Arizona State. I really Arizona State favored in this ball game, considering the fact that Arizona State is a team better than what the record says, and the record being this low at 7, and they shouldn't have, and because they are stuck in Las Vegas, that I think they should win pretty handily. This is another game that I might be calling, Georgia Southern in East. This is very intriguing. Tyler Wiegers at quarterback. Not a ton of touchdown passes. Really getting a quarterback system, hasn't played all the games this season. But you got to watch out for the offense. Shai Werts and Wesley Field, a good combo in the good combo in the backfield. Wesley Fields close to 1,000 yards, kind of like the same situation we had with Darwin. Being said, though, I don't know if Eastern Michigan is going to be able to be stopped in this ball game. It'll be a very interesting game. I could see this being really any fashion of a game. A low-scoring game is possible with the type of offense Southern runs, but the ability for Eastern Michigan to score, I think, could also make it a very scoring game as well. So it'll be fun to watch. And another game, I'm going to hold off because it could be a possible broadcast. Middle Tennessee and App State, and playing his final game as a Blue Raider. He's having a solid season. You got the quarterback matchup that really no one expected. You told me Appalachian State and Middle Tennessee were the matchup, I'd be like, a Brent Stockstill and who else? Zach Thomas. Is really that role filling in for Taylor Lamb following his departure last year, and it's going to be a very good matchup. I'm going to have a lot of fun watching that. The X Factor is Ty Lee. Ty Lee is another guy who filled the shoes of a star that left prior to him. Richie James was a star from Middle left. I believe he was drafted in the NFL. See Ty Lee step this year. He has not to the extent year, but he was able to have the. It'll be a fun one. Now Tuesday, December 18th at 7 p.m. My call is down the stretch here that it is possible for me to call, but you having a lot of momentum throttled against Middle Tennessee term the next week. That same Middle Tennessee team back weeks is crazy what they saw. Both teams their conference in unpredictable fashion. Northern Illinois upset Buffalo, and with Northern Illinois upsetting Buffalo, Marcus Childers got for very fun to watch that championship game, and part of it was Marcus Childers versus. It was good for UAB, though, to see A.J. Early healthy, and him and Spencer Brown working in that backfield should be a good game. San Diego State, Ohio. I've been debating this game because I've been high on Ohio. They're better than their record shows. They have the ability to score a lot of points. They got a three-way monster with Nathan Rourke, A.J. Owlett, and Poppy White. Poppy White is actually fully healthy this year, so it's a good thing to see with Ohio that they can actually finally get Poppy White here. While a team that could win the Mountain West earlier in the to get everything together to stay for an Arizona State game, they beat Arizona with Stanford for a while, so it's very disappointing to see San Diego State. I definitely want to call this Frisco Bowl. It'll be a fun one, Frisco, Texas Stadium, and I am definitely looking forward to that one. 8 p.m. Stadium. We got the Boy Mowers. Let me try to pronounce this again. The Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl. Marshall versus USF, again, another game I could possibly call. Jordan Cronkright's having a very solid season, and it will be fun to watch him winning the football. You don't quite know who's going to start for quarterback anymore for USF or Marshall. Tyree Brady, though, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback, can make a lot of guys have a lot of headaches, especially with that USF defense. The ability to move the ball on one side for Marshall is going to wreak havoc in a possible shootout here. The over-under is 55.5. I'm smashing the over there, even though I won't pick for or against the line of 2.5 for Marshall. Should be a good one as well. Friday, December 21st, 12:30. I will not be broadcasting either of these games. I don't think I will, at least. I'll go ahead and make a pick on both of them, and you can live with it if I end up calling one of them. FIU, though, playing against Toledo in the Bahamas Bowl. The makers wanted Bahamas Bowl on the 21st. James Morgan really being able to step into the role in Butch Davis's offense and lead this team to a lot of success this season, but let's not act like Mitchell Gudiani and the Toledo Rockets haven't had success this season either on the offensive side of the ball. But I think Toledo's 7-5 record it's not anything that you look at and you are that surprised by just based on how Toledo's played this year. They are a 7-5 team, solid. Give me FIU in this ball game. Western Michigan against BYU. BYU sitting at 6-6 is going to be a 12-point favorite in this ball game. Western Michigan, John Wazink, they're 7-5 right now, but they haven't played the opponents like BYU has. BYU has shown a lot of potential this year. Despite the fact that the offensive firepower in this game is going to come all from the Western Michigan side, you still have experience. Tanner Mangum playing his last football game at BYU. You got guys like Squally Canada, who's a workhorse. It's going to be very fun to watch this. Hefo is also another guy to watch at the wide receiving core. And this defense for BYU is so hot and cold this year. They can step up when they really need to, but they can also shut down when you need. Interesting to see which BYU team we can get in Western Michigan. That's going to probably dictate whether or not Western Michigan is going to be able to move the football up and down the field in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl on the Smurf turf. Houston against Army, and I'm going to call this game, so I'm going to avoid a pick. Army's playing right now. Darnell Wolfolk, hard name to pronounce. Wolfolk, I don't know why I have problems with that. But anyway, he's having a pretty good season. Him and Andy Davidson at the fullback position, them switching him back and forth. Got a lot of weapons on the exteriors with the slot backs as well. And quarterback Kelvin Hopkins is really running this offense a lot better than we've seen in the past, not necessarily because he's able to run the option better, but because he can bring that extra dimension of the pass. He's nearly to 900 yards. I don't know if he's hit that mark yet in this ball game today, but that's something to keep an eye on with Army. And their defense is also very stingy as well. They haven't lost a game since the Oklahoma loss in overtime back in September. However, Houston is kind of up and down this season. Losing D'Eriq King is very big. I'm thinking that Ed Olivers did say he will play in this bowl game, which is going to be very fun to watch his last ball game as a Houston Cougar. And to be honest with you, I'm not a big advocate for guys missing games, but or not playing in bowl games, but since guys that are NFL prospects are doing it, I would think Ed Oliver would in this particular matchup where Army can go low because it's not chop block if it's not pass protection. So they can go low and they will get you these option teams who can get you below the legs. It'll be interesting also to see who's going to start at quarterback for Houston following, like I said, D'Eriq King is out. They got a speedster, Marquez Stevenson, that you can get the ball to on the outside. You got running backs like Patrick Carr, for example, who's going to lead the load for Houston as well, that have had decent seasons. So there's that in the Armed Forces Bowl. Also in that day, Memphis and Wake Forest in the Birmingham Bowl. You got Brady White, Darrell Henderson, and DeMonte Coxey. And there's a guy that is not mentioned here, Tony Pollard. This offense is very explosive for Memphis. They had UCF on the ropes. There's a reason why they're a 4.5-point favorite. Their 8-5 record is not showing how good this team is. They really could be 10-2 right now, or really 10-3, 11-2 range right now. But they aren't, and don't take any credit away from Wake Forest for how they've played with an up and down season. They've beaten the likes of Florida State. They beat NC State. They hung around with Boston College. This team's very capable if they can get going on the offensive side of the ball. But the question is, and we saw it, with the game I broadcasted earlier in the year between Boston College and Wake Forest. We saw Sam Hartman in that offense get going, Kate Carney as well at running back. But it's going to be interesting to see what will we see out of Wake Forest offense. Will we see success or not? And that at the end of the day is going to make the difference in any ball game really that Memphis plays. Buffalo and Troy also on ESPN on the 22nd. Buffalo, of course, Tyree Jackson is the quarterback there that I really love to watch. You also got Anthony Johnson, who's an NFL prospect. Both of them big in size and stature for their position, especially Tyree Jackson. He's 6'7", the tallest quarterback in all of FBS. But when you look at the other side, Sawyer Smith he hasn't quite lived up to the standards that Brandon Silver set a year ago, but he's still playing good enough football to get Troy at a high level. They nearly would have been able to play for the Sun Belt Championship and likely would have won it against Louisiana. With that being said, this offense runs through B.J. Smith. B.J. Smith over 1,000 yards really gives them a lot of balance this season. So that balance is going to be very important here in the Dollar General Bowl. And finally, the Hawaii Bowl, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, another game I could broadcast. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to broadcast all these games. I'm saying these are possible. So I'm not going to make any picks publicly if I think it is likely or possible, or basically a 50% shot. Okay. Anyway, Cole McDonald finally getting back healthy. Very interesting story to watch this season with Cole McDonald. How just like Hawaii, his start was very strong, and how he began the season was very, very strong. But they kind of tapered off near the end here. They're 8-5 now, trying to get that 9th win of the season. But still, how they started off, a lot of people were reactionary to how Cole McDonald looked when there really wasn't much football to watch. That was one of the 2 games that people watched, Colorado State and Hawaii, and then you had New Mexico State, Wyoming. Those 2 games people watched, and Hawaii was probably the highlight there. Yeah, I gotta tell you, Louisiana Tech also doesn't have. They have a pretty good defense on one side, and the other side, offense that stays pretty balanced with Jamar Smith back at quarterback. Jaquiz Dancy as well, very solid guys. Mainly for Louisiana Tech, you got to be able to run the ball here in this ball game, and they haven't really established that too much this season. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to take a break as we hit Christmas time. To catch my breath real quick, we'll be right back. And we're back here with Boston College and Boise State in the Serve Pro First Responders Bowl. Now, the First Responders Bowl is going to be a bowl game with two teams that have interesting stories this year. Boise State had an opportunity to really make a statement, possibly make a run at a New Year's Six Bowl, and got embarrassed against Oklahoma State, but then went on a run following a loss to San Diego State, and they did not lose again until the conference championship game just a week ago from today. So Boise State with Brett Rippon at quarterback back again, and he's starting to gain a lot of experience, looking a lot more poised than he did earlier in the year and last year, while you have Alexander Madison as well running the ball very well, but he's not the best running back in the game. You got to go against A.J. Dillon, and also Boston College got to get, let me restart there. Getting a lot of prospects on the defensive side of the ball. You're talking about guys that will be future prospects, and you're talking about guys that are good prospects right now. Like Zach Allen, for example, is a very solid guy at the defensive end position. Is a great prospect for the NFL draft right now. But then in years to come, maybe 2 years down the line, maybe 3, I'm talking, or next year, maybe 2 years, one of the next 2 years, you got Hamp Cheevers, a cornerback who is locked down. Very interesting matchup to watch, and I can't wait. Minnesota and Georgia Tech here. Zach Annexstad didn't play as of late, but he might get to start here. Tyler Johnson, his favorite target, very interesting player to watch. And I saw Minnesota in person with Tyler Johnson. He had a great game against Ohio State, and so did Muhammad Ibrahim. Ibrahim is a very good back. He's going to give you a lot of stability at the running back position. It'll be very fun to watch this Minnesota team in Ford Field go against Georgia Tech's defense, and also this triple option. It'll be which defense can make more stops. That will be the end of the day, and that will just be the deciding factor. California and TCU. Chase Garber is starting to get that role for Cal as of late, and they've been playing a little bit better. Ended a streak against USC. Couldn't do it, though, against Stanford a week ago. Patrick Laird gives them a lot of stability at running back as well, another guy that can make plays. But you look at the speed that TCU has, and they're finally getting fully healthy. They won the last 2 games of the season with a lot of health. Now with Michael Collins at quarterback with some stability there, he can spread the ball out to guys like Kevontae Turpin and Jalen Reagor, and also running backs like Alana Lua, and you also got Darius Anderson, who I really like coming into the season, and the only top 25 defense in the Big 12 too. This is going to be another very interesting matchup in the Cheez-It Bowl. All right, the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl is going to be Temple and Duke. The last couple games, especially against Wake Forest, was not really all that impressive for Daniel Jones and Duke. Really having a lot of trouble moving the ball against Clemson and Wake Forest in both those games. And Rykel Armstrong is a guy also that can put up some yards and put up points. I think this is a good game for that reason. The rushing attack for Rykel Armstrong is, or I said Armstrong, it's Armstead, excuse me. And I am very impressed with what I see from Rykel Armstead every time I see him. And this will be very interesting because Temple started off really slow, then all of a sudden just turned it up. They look like a team who looked destined for 4-8, and they flip it around, turn it to 8-4 following the Maryland win. And very interesting to see how Temple can do with Frank Newtow at quarterback. Miami and Wisconsin, a rematch of last year's Orange Bowl. Well, it's not quite the Orange Bowl, but hey, you get to go to New York City instead of Miami this time. It is the New Era Pinstripe Bowl. Alex Hornibrook has had a down year. They had switches at quarterback, and Hornibrook really, after a stable year at starting quarterback a year ago, going 12-0 through the regular season, ending 13-1. Not looking good. A lot of people thought Wisconsin would be able to repeat as West champions. I, for one, didn't. But the reason why they did was because Jonathan Taylor, and he's been nothing short of magnificent this season. It's a shame that Wisconsin's been this poor this year, but they still got a chance to salvage their season against the Miami Hurricanes defense, in which Jonathan Taylor had a field day on a year ago, and same with Alex Hornibrook, by the way. That's probably the last complete game we saw from Hornibrook. Again, another game that could be called in the Pinstripe Bowl on the 27th. Baylor and Vanderbilt is the next game we're going to talk about. Keyshawn Vaughn has really turned up late in the season to get Vanderbilt to bowl eligible. He had a tremendous game against Tennessee. Also did Kyle Shermer, son of Pat Shermer, the Giants' now head coach for Vanderbilt. Almost to 3,000 yards this season and 23 touchdowns. He would be a decent NFL prospect, and he's going to come out as a senior this year. But Matt Rule's got the troops rolling at Baylor. They're playing a lot better defense than they have in the past, but they really don't have that marquee win. They were able to stick around with teams like Texas, for example, but they really couldn't pull off big wins. The biggest win they probably had this year was against Oklahoma State. It'll be very interesting to watch this game, though. Baylor's back to bowl eligibility after last year's debacle of a year, mostly to do with the punishment that the NCAA had and pictured for the Bears. But they get the Texas Bowl in Vanderbilt, and it should be a good one. Now we move on to the 28th, where we get Purdue against Auburn. It'll be very interesting to see. Will this pass rush be able to get to David Blau, and will they be able to contain Rondale Moore? That's the keys of these ball games. I think they're going to be able to, and because of Dontavius Russell, of course, in the middle for Auburn, I think they're going to be able to contain DJ Knox from making big plays. What's going to happen here, the guys on the edges, Isaac Zico, Rondale Moore, these wide receivers is going what will be Auburn on the offensive side of the ball, and Purdue's really got to step it up defensively. They've been off and on this year. They've really kind of been selective in their ball games defensively. They need to step it up because they're not playing an elite offense whatsoever. If they can go ahead and step it up enough defensively, you got playmakers, as I mentioned, like Isaac Zico, Rondale Moore. Maybe if you can get DJ Knox in the space that's not running it up the gut, David Blau can distribute the ball very well for Purdue. It'll be very interesting to watch that ball game in the Music City Bowl. The Camping World Bowl is going to be West Virginia and Syracuse. Mo Neal, the running back for Syracuse, very, very fun to watch, while you got Will Greer on one side spreading the ball out to, you got, just call it, Sims, Jennings, Sills, whatever you put out a name. You can spread it out to all these receivers. A lot of weapons for skillful Will Greer. Only a 2.5-point favorite for West Virginia. I expected Vegas to go a little bit higher on this. No pick being made, though. I am curious to see if we will see Eric Dungy, though, in this ball game. All right. Out to the Alamo Bowl, which is a pretty good matchup between Iowa State and Washington State. A very good passing attack against probably the best secondary that we had in the Big 12, despite the fact that they aren't a top 25 defense. Iowa State's still having a lot of success this season on that side of the ball, especially in the back end. Hakeem Butler is a very good receiver. He's fun to watch. If you watch his tape against Oklahoma, man, these guys could not bring him down. And you watch David Montgomery against most teams that he plays, he is also fantastic. Of course, he got in a fight against Baylor, though, that kept him out of the first half of the Texas game, deflating Iowa State. Brock Purdy really had nowhere to go, because he was always under duress. It was pretty much predictable what Iowa State was going to do. So that would be the key. Gardner Minshew likes to get that ball out of his hands fast. So if Iowa State can go ahead and play a little bit of press man coverage and jam them at the line of scrimmage, they're going to have a lot of success defensively, and that's been the key. Who has been able to hold down these receivers for Washington State so Gardner Minshew can't get a big play or a quick pass, I should say, off. Washington did it, and they kind of made the recipe against Washington State's offense pretty clear, at least this year. Now we get on to some big bowl games. We go to the New Year's Six when we come back. All right, the Florida Gators play the Michigan Wolverines on ESPN, and again, these are a lot of games I'm, you know, I would have a chance. It really depends on when I'm free, but I would have a chance to call. So you got Florida against Michigan here in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Shea Patterson, Karan Higdon, and Nico Collins. A good combo all the way down, and really a lot of weapons here for Michigan. You talk about Gentry, you talk about Nico Collins, you can talk about Tariq Black, you can talk about Donovan Peoples-Jones. But on the other side of the ball, Felipe Franks so hot and cold this year, but I'm really impressed with what I see from Felipe Franks down the stretch. He has big arm, able to hit a lot of these weapons at receiver, and they can also run the ball, but very stingy defense on both sides of the ball. NFL prospects everywhere on both sides of the ball. Should be a fun game. In the Peach Bowl, South Carolina versus Virginia. I'm going to go ahead and give my pick here because this is the first game in a while that I know I won't call. Jake Bentley for South Carolina throwing the ball all around the field, threw it all over Clemson's defense, which a lot of people said couldn't be done. You got on the other side an Arizona State transfer at quarterback for Virginia, and Jordan Ellis is also a very solid running back to give the ball off to. And you got a lot of good receivers here on both sides. You got Deebo Samuel and Shi Smith for South Carolina. Also, Olamide Zaccheaus is a very solid receiver, a very quick guy. If you watch his tape, you can realize that. I think South Carolina, though, in this ball game is going to be too much. Their passing attack, and Virginia is a little bit overrated this year. They fell to 7-5 after being, I believe it was 6-2 a couple weeks ago. Give me South Carolina in this ball game. Arkansas State, Nevada, another game I'll give a pick on. Justice Hansen has been playing tremendous this season in his final year, but he really doesn't have the weapons that he's had in the last few years. Merritt is probably the closest he's had, but even then, you don't have these guys on this side of the football that can really help you. While Nevada's very balanced, especially that defense. The defense really kept them in the race in the Mountain West this year. But they couldn't end up getting it done. I like this Nevada team, though. Give me Nevada and the Arizona Bowl. Here we go. College football playoff semifinal. Again, keys to the game. No picks. Clemson and Notre Dame, a game I will definitely be calling both of these games for sure. Notre Dame is going to be a fantastic defense matched up against a tremendous offense. Trevor Lawrence has really hit the scene hard in the last couple we're really down the stretch in this 8-game stretch that they've won games by more than 20 points. Travis Etienne as well has been big this year. He hit the scene first against Syracuse. Really, he was doing good before that, but Etienne's performance against Syracuse really got him on the radar. But guys like Miles Boykin, Chris Fink give you headaches. Dexter Williams can run the ball. Ian Book distributes the ball very well, very accurate passer. This is going to be a very interesting game. On both sides of the ball, the defenses are tremendous, and really we got 3 of the 4 teams that are in here that are top 10 defenses, which is tremendous. So there we go. Oklahoma against Alabama, Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa going up against each other. Those guys are going for the Heisman later, which I will have a reaction later tonight on the Heisman where I can go on a rant. Kennedy Brooks is also the lead rusher between these guys and Marquise Brown. So there's a lot of weapons on Oklahoma, and really there's also a lot of weapons here for Alabama. You can talk about Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. You can talk also about Henry Ruggs, and you could talk about Jerry Jeudy, who I believe won the Biletnikoff. I can't remember if he did. With that being said, Marquise Brown's injury is going to be very much of a concern, a highlight coming into this ball game, and of course we will have a report on that going in. That is probably the biggest key to this, but honestly, if Oklahoma can make a few stops, they can stick in this game, but that's all I'm going to say. Moving on to New Year's Eve on Monday. Cincinnati against Virginia Tech. Ryan Willis has stepped in following the injury to Josh Jackson and really had an average season for Virginia Tech since then. Cincinnati's had a overachieving season. Khalil Lewis, Michael... I can't remember his name. Michael Warren. they've been mixing around quarterbacks a little bit, but Michael Warren has been the stable, or the running back that has kept things stable on this offense. Should be a good one. Again, I might call it, so I don't know. Please leave me alone. Stanford and Pitt, KJ Costello, and this offense has really been up and down this season. Really quiet, 8-4 this season. And they should be right outside of everyone's rankings by now. Quiet 8-4. Bryce Love's been very quiet this year. In fact, he's been an afterthought. The guy that's really hit the scene on the offensive side of football, though, for Stanford is J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Man, what a season J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is having. It's very fun to watch. But this offense is also very fun to watch. Of course, you got guys moving around a lot here, up and down the field and over and over. Just a lot of eye candy here by Kenny Pickett in this Pitt offense. The defense is okay, but they aren't able to make enough stops on most teams. Clemson really ran away with that game. Pitt stuck with them for a little bit. And Quadri Olson's really going to be the key here. If he can get around the edge, make a lot of guys miss. This one is on CBS in the Sun Bowl, and I'm going to go with Stanford because defense, a little bit of Bryce Love, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, a lot of him in this ball game. Michigan State and Oregon, Justin Herbert, pro quarterback, may not play in this game. I expect them to, because why wouldn't you want to throw it for another game to Dylan Mitchell, who's been fantastic this year? Michigan State's defense has been number one in the rush for most of the year, so CJ Verdell is going to have a rough day. You got to open it up through the air if you're going to have success against these guys. While Michigan State on the offensive side of the ball, if they can get healthy again, they could be a lot better on the offensive side of the ball. Not elite, but a lot better, and that will be what it comes down to here in the Red Box Bowl. I'm going to go ahead and give Oregon the edge right now, just because NFL quarterback, a good, solid defense. Who would have thought we said that about Oregon? But, whatever. Missouri and Oklahoma State. This is the Goddamn Liberty Bowl. Taylor Cornelius up and down season. Same with Missouri. They've been very weird this season, and it's kind of similar to how last season went for these guys. Missouri really is just... the word that best describes them is probably just there's not really a word. Honestly, they just take advantage of the opportunities ahead of them, and I guess that, I put it in the dictionary, whatever word that is. Go ahead and give it to Missouri, because they can't they can't upset a whole lot of teams. They get maybe one big game a year, Florida this year. But really, they just win down the stretch, like in games that they should win. So here's a Missouri team. They should win this ball game. There's a reason why they're favored by 7.5. I'm expecting a lot of points to be put up. Secondary for Missouri is very suspect. Watch Oklahoma State's passing game with Tylan Wallace. It'll be a very fun game. Northwestern and Utah on FS1 SDCCU Stadium, San Diego Credit Union Holiday Bowl. Clayton Thorson had a pretty decent game against Ohio State. Isaiah Bowser had a decent game as well. But the guy that really made made the big play in that one was Joe Moten, a guy who's got a lot of speed that I'm surprised they haven't utilized a little bit more in the run game. If you can get the edge, you can burn a lot of people. But Utah's very disciplined. They don't allow a lot of big plays. No offensive touchdowns for Washington. No offensive touchdowns for Utah in the Pac-12 championship. Expect a lot of defense, an old-style matchup in this one. Be very fun. NC State against Texas A&M. You got Ryan Finley going up against a stingy defense, and off and on defense really for Texas A&M, but a team that can make a lot of plays. Kelvin Harmon is one receiver on one side to watch for. The other one is Kendrick Rogers. Kendrick Rogers for Texas A&M just always makes a big play. We saw that against LSU and Clemson. So very fun matchup to watch here, and I'll be very interested to look at this Gator Bowl I could possibly call it, so I'm not going to make a pick, and that's all I'm going to say. Hey, Texas A&M's favored by 5 points. There you go. Washington against Ohio State at 5 o'clock Eastern time in the Rose Bowl game. Dwayne Haskins is going to go up against the secondary that is very good, and you got Myles Gaskin, who's able to run over a lot of people. And that's where you could get the possible mismatch. If the defense can hold Dwayne Haskins down enough, only to like 250 yards, that's all you got to honestly ask for from an elite defense. Myles Gaskin has the possibility to break a lot of big runs because the difference between him and Karan Higdon from Michigan is Myles Gaskin has that breakaway speed. So if you can get the ball in space to Myles Gaskin, I think you can make a lot of big plays. But I don't think a lot of these receivers who make a lot of big catches, like Fuller, for example, but really don't have that elite speed, is going to really be able to beat Ohio State. It's going to be Gaskin. That's the key to beating Ohio State in this Rose Bowl. Should be a fun one. Another one that I could call. And this one I will not call, though. Mississippi State and Iowa. Nate Stanley is a very solid quarterback, stable for the Iowa Hawkeyes. He's able to spread the ball out, whether it's Hawkinson, Font, whoever it is. He's going to spread the ball out. I really like this Iowa defense from top to bottom. They are very good, solid defense, and it's all led here by Hooker on the defensive side of the ball in the secondary, and he is probably the key to this game. I keep talking about them, and Mississippi State's got an elite defense as well. Montez Sweat as well, another big-time prospect there. Nick Fitzgerald running the football is going to be his last game in football, but I think it's going to be disappointing for him. I actually have Iowa winning this ball game. LSU, UCF in the Fiesta Bowl. Mackenzie Milton is going to probably be out. You know what? We all know he's going to be out. And that leaves Darryl Mack, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball down LSU's throat. Joe Burrow may be able to get a little bit of speed. They've had a lot more offensive success since the Alabama loss. They were able to game plan, and even though they lost to Texas A&M, they still had success on the offensive side of the ball. Probably should have won that ball game. Stable running backs for UCF is very deep, but you got to go with LSU. I picked UCF last year against Auburn. I can't pick UCF this year against LSU because I don't think they'll be able to run the ball well enough to win the game, and you got to be able to run the ball when you don't have Mackenzie Milton. We are down to our last two games, Kentucky and Penn State. Trace McSorley, Benny Snell. These offenses are polar opposites. One's going to be based on the big play through the air and the momentum grabber by whoever, KJ Hamler, Juwan Johnson, or whoever wants to step up on. Okay, so my mic turned off. So I just touched on keys. You got two polar opposites here with this ball game, Kentucky and Penn State. Kentucky's going to try to methodically move down the field. KJ Hamler and Jawan Johnson going to make big plays. I got Penn State winning that ball game. And then Texas with the ability to spread the ball around. Going to be a very fun team to watch this year. In this game, go up against the secondary in Georgia, but Georgia also has an offense themselves that has a very balanced attack now. Jake Fromm's been playing very efficiently, and you got Holyfield and Swift. Man, I can't go through the same words twice. Holyfield and Swift playing tremendous as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time, which will be in a few hours.